nerds? Happy Saturday. I've got Holden Culotta here, who is a hardcore forward party guy. I follow him on Twitter. There's a lot of action, and I think he does Twitter Spaces on a regular basis, all about forward party stuff. So I invited him to enter the nerd zone so all of us can get to know him and learn more and maybe hear a little bit more about what's going on with the forward party. So welcome to the show and hello nerds, Holden.
Hello, nerds. How are you doing, Tom?
I'm good. I'm good. It's good to see you. And why don't we start with just a little bit of a introduction on your background and who you are.
Yeah, so my name's Holden Culotta. I have been involved in the Forward Party kind of from the start. I was involved in Andrew Yang's 2020 presidential campaign, big supporter of UBI and what he was talking about back then,
Mm-hmm.
um, and kind of followed him since then. So around that time, I was taking a gap year from high school. I graduated in 2019 and didn't know what I wanted to do next. So I took a gap year and ended up spending much of that year, phone banking, text
Mm.
banking, going to Iowa, New Hampshire for his presidential campaign. Um, and then kind of followed, a similar pattern that he did of like after the presidential campaign ended, it was like, okay, seems like, there's a deeper problem here that the issue isn't, UBI or whatever issue you care about isn't being put forth to the people. There's some systemic barriers here.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, after that, I got in, started going to college. I'm a political science major now. Just finished my second year there. Actually finished exams up last week.
Well, congratulations.
Thanks very much. It's a good feeling. Um, and got involved with the Forward Party pretty much as soon as that was announced. I really liked what they're talking about with focus on electoral reform. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
what drew me so much to the Forward Party with that aspect specifically is that they seem like the only ones with a real plan to fix this. The whole system, all
Mm.
the problems we've got. They're talking about like changing incentives, saying if we have ranked choice voting, then you have good incentives. If you have if you end gerrymandering, you have much better incentives. So things like that really resonated with me in terms of you know we need different incentives. The system is producing all the wrong things, and we need a lot more to change besides just left right kind of traditional politics.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely going after the root cause of the problem. How do you feel? How would you sort of grade the forward party's efforts here so far? I think a lot of us were super intrigued and excited when we first heard about it. But there is some frustration that I've heard from others, and a little bit on my own part. Like, well, why aren't there more details? And we've had forward party reps on the show before, and I understand like it's still kind of a startup. But what's your take on like specifics and dates and goals and policies and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it is going to take patience, right? It is a slow, very slow process. And I know a lot of the people at National are very forward national, on the
Mm-hmm.
national team, are very concerned with kind of putting out a platform or policy stance before we have a big group of people on board to say, this is a vibrant group that came up with this agenda. They don't want it to seem like, we decided this from the top and this is our
Mm-hmm.
agenda just to put up an agenda. So I I would give them a good grade. I'd give them, on that specifically because I want to see more policies, more specifics, but I'm also working on that here in Connecticut, and so I have kind of a
Mm-hmm.
firsthand look at that. Takes a lot of time. We're in stages of organizing with people, getting local communities set up. So it is going to be some time before there's you know clear kind of national vision, but there's also people doing trying to kind of meet in the middle on that around the country. Like, for example, the northeastern states, we're planning a summit just out of the 6 Northeast states this summer, where we're going to lay out, hopefully a clear roadmap, some priorities that talk about more policy. A couple of the states, I know Texas and Tennessee, have both put out, policy statements and stuff on specific things that are happening in the state. So there's, a lot of forwardists are trying to kind of find that middle ground between there isn't yet a vibrant party network established that could say, this is definitely the forward party policy, but also trying to clearly say these are, our priorities. This is tangibly what we want to do.
It's such a tough challenge, a bit like a chicken and egg issue where I get it. Like if you don't have this broad, vibrant sort of party membership and leadership kind of infrastructure, and you come out with a bunch of specific policies too early, then people are going to be like, wow, this is Andrew and a few people that got together on a weekend and just came up with this stuff. On the other hand, it's hard to attract a lot of that critical mass if you don't have clear positions on some issues. And I wonder, like in the discussions within the Forward Party that you've been able to observe or participate in, has there ever been talk about saying, well, okay, fine, like let's just be a single issue party? Or, it's like the Green Party. They probably take positions on lots of policies, but you know what their focus is on. And for the Forward Party, you could say, well, look, our number 1, 2, 3 issue is around democracy reform and voting reform and primary reform. And that's what's most important to us, and that's what we're going to focus on. Yeah, we'll develop other policies later, but that's what we're here for. That's our reason for being. Has that approach been kind of kicked around or debated?
Yeah, there's, personally, I think we could expand on some other things like campaign finance reform. I think would be something that fits in with our priorities that we have now. The other conversation that comes up a lot that I am also a proponent of is that we should identify some issues. We have ranked choice voting. We have these electoral policies that say these are going to change the incentives, change the system. But then I think on the other side, we need to have clearly, like, this is what we want to change. For example, like the thing that comes to my mind is the opioid crisis. Something like that. That's not, liberal or conservative policies that are needed. It's just people are suffering, and this, it's something that we need policies from both sides. I think pointing out some things, broad issues like that would be a good idea. And yeah, those conversations are absolutely happening every day. There's a lot of forwardists who have a lot of thoughts on the platform.
What's your best guess on when folks will have a little more visibility into, what is the official Forward Party, like their top policy priorities, and also like when are they going to start fielding candidates? Obviously 2024 maybe. I don't know. Is that too early? Is it 2026?
24, yeah.
Yeah, 24. Okay.
Yeah, so it's there. There's a couple, you'll see in this year, a couple different Forward Party states put out, their own kind of versions of priorities or a broader platform. Like I know Pennsylvania has their summit, their first party summit today, actually. But 2024 summer, I think don't quote me on this, but I believe they're aiming to have a convention that summer that will lay out, a roadmap with more clear priorities and that, kind of laying out an agenda. And then with candidates, you're going to see a lot of local candidates this year and next year too. So the first couple of years, 23, 24, 25 is going to be heavy local. You're going to see a lot of local candidates, probably a handful of state level candidates. But I would not expect national candidates until, like you said, 26, 28.
Got it. And when you say local, you mean like city council local or state assembly local, or What
Like city
kinds of?
council,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And tell me about what's going on with the Forward Party in Connecticut. Like, what's been the experience and feedback you've been seeing so far?
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, we had actually the first forward party candidate in the country was here in Connecticut for warden. It was a small local election for a
Mm-hmm.
warden of a borough. It was like 400 voters total.
Mm-hmm.
And he came just short. He came 11 votes short, unfortunately. But yeah, exciting stuff going on. I think the number one takeaway I have from meeting with people so far in Connecticut is that there's a lot of people out there trying to do the same kind of thing we're doing,
Mm-hmm.
but they're doing it like independently. I've met probably half a dozen or a dozen people who have the same story of, they're like, I'm an independent in my town. I've been fighting against the parties in my town for 10, 20 years, and I've been on an island this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had a community, no support like that. So my biggest takeaway would be there's a lot of people doing that work. And if we have a network, a community behind them, I think it's going to take off quickly.
Tell me about what your reaction is to the no labels movement. Um, on the one hand, I hear about it and I'm like, yeah, this is great. We want more voices, more alternatives. On the other hand, I'm like, well, isn't that what the Forward Party was trying to do? And do do you feel like that no labels effort is somehow like leapfrogging the Forward Party, or could it complement the Forward Party, or any thoughts on that effort?
I think it could be a compliment.
Mm,
I don't know too much about them specifically, but I personally believe, and I know a lot of forwardists believe too, that we're doing this because we want a multi-party system, not just forward party. And I want like 5, 6 national parties, state parties, local parties. Um, so no labels with total, another party like that's totally a compliment in my mind.
Getting back to Connecticut, what are the goals that you have for Connecticut for the Forward Party? What at the end of this year, what kind of milestones do you want to try and hit in Connecticut?
The biggest thing is getting local leaders. So, local people, local leaders in place to start organizing their towns. And that's beyond that, I think local candidates would be kind of a tangible milestone for this year. We're going to have, I can't say for sure how many we'll have, but 6-ish, maybe half a dozen. Um, and I think in terms of legal party recognition would have to be a big point too, because Connecticut, I could spend a long time talking about this, but Connecticut has some of the most, I think it's the most difficult ballot access laws and regulations in the country. Um, so in order to earn ballot access, we have to run a candidate for every single line. So for example,
Oh
if
wow.
for like a city councilor, if you run and get 1% for your party, you have that one ballot line. But then for the warden or the mayor, you'd have to
Mm-hmm.
run and get that ballot line as well. So if we can get a number of those, I'm not sure how many candidates we're going to have, but 6, 12, that allows us to have legal structure, allows us to start fundraising.
Mm-hmm.
So a handful of those would be my goal.
So in California, a lot of us are involved with the Common Sense Party, which is, I think, like partnered with the Forward Party. Um, and one of the goals is, hey, we need to get to 100,000 people who have indicated that they are affiliated with the Common Sense Party in their official party registration, in their voter registration. And if we do that, then the Common Sense Party can be recognized as a official political party in California, and then unlocks the ability for the Common Sense Party to raise way more money than any individual candidate can. Is that a similar dynamic in Connecticut as well?
It's similar in that if we get that 1% in a town, for example, then we're
Mm-hmm.
allowed to set up a town committee, which is a legal entity that unlocks fundraising. So yeah,
And get that 1%, 1% of party registrations, or your candidate
of the
needs to get
vote. Yeah,
1% of the vote?
of the
Okay,
vote.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting kind of uh, I see why Connecticut is a little bit more restrictive because, like, well, how am I supposed to get 1% if if I don't have the ability to organize and fundraise as a party? So it's kind of like, oh yeah, you like like a bank saying, once you have enough money, then I'll lend you money.
Yeah.
At least in California, if people just change their registration, like 100,000, you get recognized as a party, and then you can field your candidates and raise money, that kind of thing. Yeah, that seems kind of lame the way Connecticut does it.
Yeah, it is kind of lame in my opinion too.
Mm,
I agree. You know, it as we're approaching this, there's a very, very strategic element to it, right? Of there's a huge barrier to getting a third party in. So, for example, that first election we ran a couple weeks ago, it was a borough with, I think, 370, 400 voters turned out.
mm,
So that's obviously an example of, we can go in there and we got the 1% because we needed, 3 or 4 votes to get it.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, there has to be a very strategic kind of approach to this too.
Interesting. And once you get a person that runs for an office that gets 1%, does that then mean like in the whole state of Connecticut, the forward party can be recognized, and now you can raise money and support other candidates, or do you have to do it like position by position, like
We
every?
can raise money for other candidates now.
Uh
So
huh.
the town committee we have set up as a result of getting that 1%
Mm-hmm.
can fundraise and donate to candidates anywhere in the state, but
Okay.
it does not give us ballot access across the state.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And when you say it does not give you ballot access, can you talk more about the specifics on what that means?
Yeah. So without ballot access, we would need to petition for each individual office. So petitioning means, you just collect a number of signatures
Mm-hmm.
to get your line on the ballot if you're not an established party. So I think to get like permanent ballot access in
Mm-hmm.
the state would have to be 20% in the governor's race. That would earn you like permanent major party status in the state of
Mm.
Connecticut. Um, but
Okay, and
short
then
of,
once
yeah,
once you get that, then you get a spot on the ballot for every
every office.
position.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and then if you don't have those spots, then what? People have to write your people in, or
You
how does?
could petition. So we can
Okay,
still
yeah.
petition for, any office and get a number
For
of
each office,
signatures.
you have to do a separate petition for every. I mean, could be, yeah,
Yeah. You
yeah.
can
That's
see
definitely
how, these barriers for third parties are
it's terrible.
substantial.
It's terrible. I mean, can you imagine if like companies that if a startup had to do that to compete for customers? It's like no, just
Yeah.
like the market, you just go out there and compete. In this case, it's like oh well, you got to have permission to compete almost,
You
which
do.
is
In
yeah.
Tennessee, actually, it's a crazy example. To get on the ballot as a Democrat or Republican, you
Mm,
need 25 signatures. And as a third party, it's around 35 to 38,000 you need.
mm, crazy.
So
We have a question in the chat from Jeremy, who's a channel member. Is there a resource that lists all forward candidates? I have not heard of your guy running for city council.
there's
Yeah.
there's not yet. We should have that though, but this was the first forward candidate ever, so we don't have like a list yet. And
Mm-hmm.
as far as I know, there aren't any others currently on the ballot.
Okay. So, but it
But
sounds
the
like
answer is
when
no.
there are more candidates, then you'll have a list. Otherwise, that would have been a list of one when that guy was running.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There was a list of the 2022 endorsements they did last year, so I'm sure you'll see a list for
Mm.
local candidates. Yeah,
Right. And that's right. So there's forward party endorsed candidates. They might be running as a Democrat or Republican, but they're endorsed by the forward party. But in terms of actual, like, I'm running as a forward party candidate, that's a different story.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll also see, like I saw you had Ariel on here a month or two ago to
Mm-hmm.
talk about the Arizona event.
Right.
So you'll see stuff like that too, where there were 4 House Democrats in Arizona who are still registered with the Democratic Party, but publicly
Mm-hmm.
came out as forward Democrats. So they're
Right.
aligned
Right.
with the
Right.
movement. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And tell me about your Twitter Spaces. Is it recurring like every Monday or?
Twice a week, every
Uh-huh.
Monday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern.
And
Yeah.
what happens in them? What do you guys talk about?
Oh, those are a lot of fun. I have so much fun with those. They're based around the Forward Party, but kind of just dive into any different topic. So, for example, this week, Andrew actually joined us this week as
Oh,
well
nice.
for a conversation on propaganda and independent media. So, yeah,
What
twice
was
a
what
week.
was his take on that?
It was interesting. He is a fan of this kind of independent media sphere that's popping up.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we talked about was citizen journalism, which
Mm.
I would like to, I think I'll do a space on at some point too. It's an interesting topic that we don't traditionally think of that, journalism or reporting as something that individuals could do on their own. But I think, citizen journalism, there's a lot of value in that. You're seeing a lot of people on Twitter, on different social media platforms,
Mm-hmm.
um, be able to get this information out on their own independently. And Andrew was excited about that. And I think it's a really cool development.
Yeah. What's what's your observation in terms of Andrew's engagement with the Ford Party? I know there's always been this kind of delicate balance in that he obviously can bring a lot of energy and support and awareness, and the party wants to make it about the party and the principles, not only about Andrew. How's your what's your observation on how he's been involved?
Yeah, I think, I mean, he is, he's going all around the country. Like, first
Mm-hmm.
of all, he's, jetting around the country, going to events every day, getting on this news. So, like, he's,
Mm-hmm.
being a fantastic leader, cheerleader for the movement. Um, but I'm not as concerned about, the movement getting too tied to him, just because I do hear that come up so much. There are a lot of people in the movement that are very cognizant
Mm-hmm.
of, we don't want to make this Andrew Yang's party. We want to, we respect him. He's a fantastic leader for the
Mm-hmm.
movement, but we also don't want this to be just about him. So I'm not as concerned about that kind of, you know, that tying together, because there's a lot of people in the movement that are thinking about that and making sure that it doesn't get too tied to him.
What do you think is the biggest misconception about the Ford Party that you've observed so far that you want to kind of help people understand a little more of the nuance?
I think the biggest one, obviously, is the 2024 race.
Mm-hmm.
That people think of forward party or third party, and their mind goes immediately to spoiler effect.
Mm-hmm.
So the one thing that I'd try and get out about forward party is that we're not running a presidential candidate in 2024. We're not running candidates in races that are gonna split the vote one way or the other. Um, we're really focused on uncompetitive races, races that are not going to spoil, essentially, um, because there's 500, that something our CEO Lindsay Draft talks about a lot, is there's 500,000 elected offices in the country, and 70% of them are not contested. They
Mm-hmm.
just have one candidate on the ballot. So in terms of misconceptions, I would just say, that is where Forward Party's focus is, not on spoiler races, not on the presidential race. The spoiler effect is not going to be a part of this movement.
Yeah, that's a great clarification. We have a question from Vaughn, who's also a channel member supporting this content. Is Andrew more busy now than he was during his presidential run?
You'll have to ask him. He
That's hard
very
to be
well
more
may
busy.
be. Yeah,
Really? Wow.
I mean, I'm the amount of events I see him going to, like, I check on Twitter and I feel like he's in California one day and then, across the country the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. He's doing a lot.
Man, that guy is like boundless energy. I don't know how he does it.
He is. Yeah, it's inspiring, it really brings people along.
So for people watching this now and who want to get more involved, what's your recommendation on how people can help out?
So you can get involved to sign up on forwardparty.com, first of all,
Mm-hmm.
to get your information, in the platform so that your state leads can reach out to you.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to forwardparty.com/volunteer underscore find underscore your underscore state, you can get a map of all 50 states showing the progress, how far we are in building the party in each of these different states. You can get in touch with, the people in your state. Um, but the biggest thing would be just get involved in the community wherever you feel, you're needed or called or drawn to. The thing, something I say a lot is that it matters less what you do than whether you do something. There's so many different things that are needed in this country today that, just get involved in the community. And if there isn't something that is happening that you would be drawn to in the forward community, reach out to some people and, start making it happen. This is a very, very open party that we're, willing to work with people, just about anybody, wherever you're from. Um, so yeah, it's kind of like an open source party, and I would just say get involved in the community, however you can, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's, going to an event. Um, just get involved in the community, and we'll bring you in and make some shit happen.
Yeah, that's great. Maybe last question is, what are some examples of how you've seen people get involved? Because when Andrew ran in 2020, I think you could text bank, phone bank, canvas, donate, kind of amplify content on social media. There were like very specific things you could do. What would be similar things in the forward party where someone wants to get involved like today? What
Yeah.
actions can they take?
Depends on your state, but with the Common Sense Party, for example,
Mm-hmm.
anyone in the country can help phone bank or text bank with that. So, there's individual things where you could help, reach out to Common Sense Party, go to their website, and you can help them register voters. Um, a bunch of different states are doing, signature gathering, petitioning as well.
Mm-hmm.
South Carolina is one I know that, they're out every weekend gathering signatures. So just check, the first thing would be check on what's going on in your state. Um, and yeah, I think, a lot of this is developing too, like candidates, for example, is not really a thing that you could get involved in right
Mm-hmm.
now, but 6 months from now it's going to be a very different story. There are going to be candidates that you can get involved in their campaigns. um, so yeah, connecting with like Common Sense Party, helping phone bank, stuff like that, you can absolutely do. And like I said, just getting involved in the community, so when these opportunities come up, you'll hear about it.
Well, this has been a great conversation, Holden. I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your perspectives. I think I'll wrap it up with asking you, how would you, if you were talking to someone who had never heard of the Forward Party, and like you ran into them like at a gathering and they were like, "Oh, what is the Forward Party?" Give us your kind of standard short summary so that others can maybe learn and apply it in their future conversations as well.
Yeah, my quick pitch would be the Forward Party is about electoral reform. So in our system today, 90% of elections are not competitive in the House, and 70% of our elections nationwide are not contested. So in an environment like that, there's just no way that change can happen. If candidates don't have competitive elections, they don't have to listen to voters. So the Forward Party is about electoral reform that changes the incentives. So we have candidates have to listen to voters. They have to compete with other candidates. They have to fight for your vote, essentially. And the way we do that is with ranked choice voting, nonpartisan primaries, ending gerrymandering, so that we can have a vibrant system with 5, 6, 7 political parties, and you can make your voice heard in any one of them.
I like it. I like it. That's good stuff, Holden. Thank you so much, my friend. It's been great having you on. And with that, we'll say goodbye, nerds.
Goodbye, nerds. Thank you so much, Tom.
See you, Holden. Bye.
Have a good one.
All right. Holden Culotta. I like that guy. He's going places. I liked his pitch at the end as well. So if you thought that conversation was useful, and if you're like, yeah, that was helpful, go ahead and hook me up with a like and share this out so more people can hear the same conversation and discover it. Yeah, Rock, I'm glad you enjoyed it as well. Goodbye, nerds. Let me thank the people who keep this channel running, which is our channel members on YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're watching this on Facebook or Twitter and you want to support the channel, just go to YouTube and click the join button, and that'll allow you to choose between anything from $1.99 a month all the way up to I don't know what our maximum is, but it might be like $20 a month or something. And it just goes to like supporting our podcast hosting fees and some of our software licensing fees and streaming fees. So it keeps the channel going and kind of reminds me like, okay, yeah, people value this stuff. I should keep doing it. So who is currently supporting the channel? Let's give a shout out. We're going to start. Let's see. Here we go. See your members. Okay, here we go. We're going to start with our most powerful member, Soldier One. Let me present and share my screen. Soldier One is like carrying this channel on his back himself. We appreciate Soldier One. He is a senior vice president, so love it. Then we've got VP level executive supporters. One level down from Soldier One is Bike and Kristen Slevin. Kristen Slevin's an OG nerd supporting the channel for 40 months. Then we have our hardcore, Gene, David, DK, Jackalego, Kirsch, Mr. History, Mona, Vaughn Doramel, who is in the chat right now, Yang, Robert, Dean. Yeah, if you're a member in the chat, just say hello and I'll give you an extra shout out. Galessa, J Perrin, AH, Dana, Jason, Daniel, and Mickey. And thanks to StreamYard for helping us with some of our hosting fees, our streaming fees. And then verified, $1.99 a month. Cancel anytime. Lisa, Albert, Brandon, Sophia, Doris, Emerald, Ben, James, Ira, Elizabeth, Shoni, Dr. William, Karen, Emery, Mai, Brittany, Lori, Wana, Kevin, Nell, T, Jeremy, David, Nicholas, Mike, Aurora, Zig, N. Carter, Roberto, and Caleb. So you guys are awesome. You make the channel possible, and I really appreciate it. Oh, Rock is doing some shout outs here. Vaughn, Mike, Jeremy. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Jeremy. Vaughn, you rock. With that, I'm now going to do some community service. Me and the two nerdlings are going to spend a few hours with Save the Bay in the San Francisco Bay Area, working on a wildlife preservation area to remove some invasive species of plants that are kind of stifling the local plants and native plants. So we're going to work on that, and hope you enjoy the weekend too. And if you listen to audio podcasts, subscribe to Nerds for Humanity wherever you listen to audio podcasts. So you might think it's only on YouTube, but we're also on audio podcasts. And we'll see you next time. Goodbye, nerds.